4th, 2024.
Slur my words.
Before we get started, please note that this meeting is being made available to the public through an audio recording which will be used to ensure an accurate record of proceedings produced in the minutes of the meeting. All comments made in open session will be recorded. First up on our agenda is the master plan presentation, 7 p.m. And we have Luke Mitchell here from...
Hi. Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Great.
Nice to see you all. A lot of familiar faces here, so good to be back. It's been a while. What was that meeting in March, maybe, where we had the big public meeting? But anyhow, thanks for having me. I sent Sue a slide deck, and she printed some copies that you all have. Does everybody have a copy?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So I asked Sue, how long should I plan to speak? Because the comprehensive plan has a lot of content in it.
Yes.
She said, keep it pretty succinct, 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that would be fine, and we've had the opportunity to read through the plan, we've had the opportunity
Okay.
to be at the presentation, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll keep it high level.
But any other opportunity for the public to get a taste of it is good, so.
Okay.
We're glad you're here today.
Perfect.
Or any perspective on what we missed out on opportunities in our plan that you might want to comment on
Sure.
the side.
I'm sure you didn't miss anything.
Yeah,
Well, we did.
we got a lot in there, for sure. But is there any other sort of questions or things that you want me to focus on? Or basically just a high level overview?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So, yeah, just as a sort of quick agenda, I know it'll only be 10 or 15 minutes, but I can give a very quick introduction, and sort of introduce the key players in the process, present an overview of the plan, briefly discuss measures for implementation and what some of the experiences we've had with other towns who are in the same boat you are now, which is, okay, we have a plan, what now? And then open it up to entertain any questions that anybody has. So folks with a packet will see that photos of the VHB team. So there was 6 of us all told, splitting up the heavy lifting. And then the next slide is, of course, a list of the folks who participated on the master plan collaboration committee, some of whom are here tonight. You know, this was such a great group of people to work with. We received great guidance and input from them throughout the process, and they brought so much constructive energy. And there's different points of view within the group. But I thought people worked together so well in the end, and so it was a really positive experience and a pleasure for us to work with the collaboration committee. And beyond that committee, we also relied on input from a whole lot of stakeholders. We set up a lot of calls with different folks. And of course, we did an online community survey, and we did a face-to-face interaction. We did 2 public meetings. We did some tabling last summer. We were at an event, and so had a lot of great input from lots of different people. So we wrote a vision statement as part of the master plan, and it's already so high level. I don't think you can really summarize it beyond the way it's written. So I'm just going to read it because I think we put a lot of work into it and got a lot of feedback from folks. So. Located in the heart of the South Shore, the town of Pembroke will invest in its greatest assets and continue to be an excellent place to live. As a community rich in history and with a vibrant population, its distinct quality of life is rooted in its close-knit and welcoming culture. The town will be responsible stewards of the land, having long demonstrated a commitment to preserving and protecting its unique natural and open space resources. To enhance wellness, connectivity, and quality of life, the town will create community spaces, provide unique recreational amenities and events, and expand programming and services to improve residents' ability to lead active and healthy lives. Pembroke will enhance and encourage walkability and other non-motorized forms of transportation, and will focus on creative placemaking. Citizens will continue to enjoy a feeling of safety and security throughout town, supported by modern and readily available emergency services. Young and growing families will be further provided with a quality education for their children. Seniors will benefit from a robust network of support systems and services. Throughout the year, Pembroke will conduct, support, or encourage various exhibits, events, and programming that preserves and celebrates its history and culture. Pembroke will support sustainable and mindful growth in strategic locations, encouraging residential development that responds to local housing needs and commercial development that strengthens the economy and creates jobs. Hubs of activity like the town center and the Route 3 commercial district will be enhanced to support a vibrant mixed-use environment for residents and visitors. And lastly, there will be a visible improvement to the public facilities, utilities, and services of Pembroke, and the town's boards will establish new protocols for effective communication and decision-making while considering their effects on future generations. So a lot in there. Again, it's pretty high level, but I think that really captured the biggest, most salient topics that came up throughout the process. So to walk through each chapter, again, it's a challenge to really summarize it so quickly. But chapter 1 was on land use and development patterns. Okay. So Pembroke is a great town. It's got a lot of great public spaces in it. One thing we heard a lot from the community was that some of the spaces could be improved through strategic investments and in some cases, new development. So several goals came out of our assessment of land use and development patterns. First is the town center. There's a lot of affinity for the town center, right? And it's getting better all the time, with, for example, with the introduction of the community center, which is awesome. I'm going to check it out when I wrap up here. But the town can take steps to further improve the town center by updating zoning and land use regulations that are more encouraging of a sort of vibrant community space. Based on our review of the zoning and comments we heard from people, a lot of the dimensional requirements that you see in there, land use restrictions, aren't necessarily supportive of the type of vibrant spaces that we heard people saying that they wanted to see. So that's a big one. Second is the commercial district located at Route 3 and Route 139. This is not an unsuccessful district. You have a lot of active businesses there. It's a job center. You can go there shopping and daycare and all sorts of stuff like that. But like the town center, it can use a fresh look at its zoning and land use regulations, including some of the dimensional requirements like setbacks of 60 feet from the main road, like really pushing things back. It doesn't necessarily support the sort of mixed use development that's very popular these days and that you see happening around the state. So taking a close look at that would be great for the economy and for the community. Third, vacant and underutilized properties. There's properties like this throughout the town. We talked about many of them and visited a few of them. So one thing Pembroke can do is identify these sites and market development opportunities to the development and investment community in the state broadly, as there's several really strong examples of this that cities and towns in Massachusetts have done. I'm surprised there's not more of them, honestly, because it's a smart thing to do, which is to proactively say, hey guys, we got these 3 sites or 4 sites or 8 sites that would really support some development. But that could be a good opportunity. And then finally, zoning and permitting procedures. New investment in Pembroke is important because it supports the tax base and it creates jobs locally. So to attract this investment, the town can take a critical look at zoning and permitting procedures. We heard a lot of critical input on both fronts. On the permitting front, it's the age-old question. You want to protect your community and make sure that your standards are enforced, but you also don't want to deter people from coming in and building things. So taking a fresh look at permitting would be a great step. So next is housing. Housing has always been an important consideration since the dawn of man. But right now, it's very front and center in Massachusetts, nationally, and certainly in Massachusetts. You have the governor and the state government pushing through the $6 billion bond bill, which is sort of record-breaking investment in housing programs. All because of the fact that housing is way too, the cost of housing is way too high for most people. So, Pembroke has to be intentional in order to keep pace with that, as you demonstrated that you're capable of when responding to the MBTA community's legislation. You guys were one of the first communities to push that through. So we identified 5 housing goals. First is to update your housing production plan. The last one was from 2018. Those are 5-year plans, so that's pretty low-hanging fruit, is to just, pull a new plan together. Second goal is to meet the housing needs of young families and individuals. This segment is drawn to specific types and arrangements of housing specifically. Is there the right type of housing product that they're going to respond to and move to town? And maybe not, so you might want to take a look at what's out there. Third, the town must continue to accommodate the housing needs of seniors, which becomes more and more important as the median age increases statewide and certainly here in Pembroke. And by the way, the housing preferences of seniors and young households, there's a lot of alignment there, actually. And it's, multifamily, more rental housing, stuff like that. Fourth is infrastructure, specifically as it relates to serving existing and new housing. That, of course, includes transportation infrastructure like roads, but also potentially exploring avenues for providing water and sewer in strategic locations that would allow for multifamily housing and things like that. I know that's easier said than done, but something to take a close look at, right? So lastly, the town will align future residential investment with commercial development goals, because you got to achieve the right balance between the two. All right, so, sorry, so hard to do this quickly, but Chapter 3, Economic Development.
You're doing great.
Thanks. So, economic development. Pembroke is an example of what could be called a bedroom community. There's nothing wrong with being a bedroom community. It just means that you have something of a lopsided balance in your tax collection, with homeowners bearing a higher burden than businesses relative to in other communities. So for that reason, it's always critical to try to think creatively about how to spur investment and create jobs and stuff like that. So first goal for this chapter is to promote development that boosts the tax base and increases the availability of jobs. That shouldn't be too controversial. Second, supporting the workforce. This includes classes, training programs, and partnerships. Employers, when they're going to build a new center or warehouse or light industry, the question is, where's the workforce? They always follow the workforce. It's the number one question on their minds. So anything you can do locally to boost the workforce, good stuff. Third, encourage younger people and families to move to Pembroke. I know that sounds familiar. It was in the last chapter. This is just a different angle on the same challenge, because it's a really important one, to bring young families and kids, keep the enrollments going at the school, stuff like that. Fourth is to strengthen the network of local businesses. We spoke with folks who are part of doing that already, Chamber of Commerce and sort of business associations. Fifth goal is to promote and manage tourism in Pembroke. Tourism is a bit of an awkward word, but the idea is how can you boost the amount of people who come in and spend their money at restaurants and even just to visit the park or even the gas station, just increasing the amount of people who come to support the businesses in Pembroke. Finally, grant opportunities. This is about OPM, which is other people's money. Every town in the state is competing for a very limited pool of grant dollars that are out there for infrastructure, for housing, for all sorts of different programs. And with the introduction of the Community One Stop, where everything was put into one portal, it got even more competitive. became easier to go after grants, so more people are doing it. So what can you do about that? Well, there's several actions. I won't go into all of them now, but it's just really about boosting up the capacity that you have to find out what grants are out there, constantly research them, and go after those dollars. So, Chapter 4 is Historic and Cultural Resources. The work of preserving history and culture is already being carried out very constructively and successfully by several groups. You got the Historic Commission, the Historical Society, the Cultural Council, and the CPA Committee. So the town has designated several historic assets, along with other assets that have, along with many other assets that have been officially documented. So throughout the calendar year, the town sponsors several well-attended events also that are integral to town's culture. So in terms of goals, first goal is to empower the local stewards of history and culture to do even more than they're doing now. Second is Pembroke can expand upon its documented historic resources. And this would include looking at stuff built in the 20th century that's often overlooked when trying to identify historic assets. But at this point, a lot of those have historic value and should really be considered. Third is to, Pembroke also needs to leverage all this history and culture to foster a stronger sense of place in Pembroke, which can be accomplished through education and informational campaigns. And finally, the town will work to promote stronger links between historic preservation and economic development. Really, there's a lot there as elucidated in the plan. So next is natural resources. Pembroke has a broad array of pristine natural settings and open space amenities like Tubbs Meadow, Herring Run Park, the ponds, and other places around town. This includes both town-owned properties and privately owned properties. The guidance that we received from the MPCC was, hey, look, we just did an open space and rec plan. We don't need to rewrite the wheel here. So really, we leaned pretty heavily on that document, and a lot of these goals came out of it, or at least were supported by and in alignment with it. First goal is to protect water resources, open spaces, and agricultural lands. Second is to expand connectivity within the town's various natural spaces. And that's, by the way, wildlife connectivity, but also recreational and programmatic connections. Third is to improve accessibility. We heard about this a lot from lots of people, was that they wanted to see that, make sure that the open space assets were accessible to people of different ability levels and seniors and things like that. So I think it's a great idea. It's hard to do, right? It's expensive, but there's a lot of passion for that. Fifth, maintaining and enhancing partnerships. There's several local and regional associations and trusts active in protecting the environment that Pembroke can partner with more closely. And lastly, again, grant funding. The town can build upon its methods of pursuing state and federal dollars to support natural resource initiatives. Chapter 6 is public facilities and services, always a fun one. Covers the schools, administrative buildings, library, emergency services, rec facilities, roads, utilities. First on the list of goals is the town's infrastructure, roads, utilities, equipment, and IT. So the town will work to advance the approach to maintenance and upgrades of these critical resources. Obviously, that's something that's on your mind already, and DPW and stuff like that. But there's several actions we have to sort of advance the approach. Second is staffing in town. The town will continue to be intentional about how its staffing resources can be best aligned, leveraging the great staff that you already have in place. How can that staff be realigned or even augmented with new positions? Fourth are the school buildings. Like any building, the school buildings have certain deferred maintenance needs associated with each one of them. So those needs will be addressed methodically over the coming 15 years I guess I would add, it's not just about maintaining them, but also modernizing them and upgrading them to ensure that they're, on track with other educational facilities, because I know the technology that's used in schools and everything is changing so rapidly, so attention on that. Fifth is the library system. I love the library you have. I worked over there a few times during the process. I think it's a really nice space. But it can definitely benefit from expanded programming, more dollars, more programs, more resources, to make sure that every user group that could benefit from it is being, that their needs are being addressed or met somehow. And lastly, generally speaking, is about the needs of the town's seniors for various programming and services. I think there was a lot of actions associated with that one. Last chapter is transportation and mobility. So given the rural suburban nature of Pembroke, the automobile is king in Pembroke, right? And so it's really critical for that reason that roadway infrastructure is treated as a paramount resource, and it's upgraded with consideration given to safety and traffic efficiency and all the rest. Having said that, infrastructure for pedestrians and bicyclists and those who want to link to public transit is also something that is really important. And having a sort of more elaborate system of routes and pathways for people who are on a bike or walking is going to benefit. We talked a lot about this with the committee. It's going to benefit the people on bikes and walking, but it'll also benefit folks driving the car, because it's going to be safer for everybody. So, and by the way, speaking of other people's money, the state loves to spend money on stuff like that. So you don't have to worry about issuing a bond or something. You tap into what the state's going to pay for. Okay, so goals. First is bike lanes and sidewalks, as we just mentioned. And you all know some of this anyway. You prepared a bike and pedestrian connectivity and livability study in 2018. Could that be refreshed and updated? Probably. Lots changed in 6 years. Second, roadway conditions within the vicinity of the schools. It's just a safety issue, right? But by the way, the state's spending a lot of money on that right now too. So could you tap into those dollars? Probably. Third, transportation needs of older adults. How do older adults move around, especially if they can't drive anymore? We know that there is a regional transit agency which provides services. Is it enough? Do people know about it? Which I guess ties into the next goal, which is improving access to public transit and through stronger partnership with GATRA. We spoke to people who weren't aware of everything that GATRA had to offer, or they were aware, and for whatever reason they weren't necessarily taking advantage of it. It wasn't top of mind. So I think if you guys could, as you are already doing, really strengthen that communication with GATRA and talk about it and say, what can we do better? How can we improve this for the people who need it? Because it's a great resource. Fifth, as I mentioned earlier, is roadway programming. It's not just about repaving the roads and fixing potholes and stuff. It's about upgrading the roads with the right kind of street lighting, given the type of road that it is and the built environment that surrounds it. Improved signalization, crosswalks, other upgrades for safety, for aesthetics, for managing traffic. That in terms of evolving technology, there's certainly evolving technology with regard to signalization and smart city technology and anticipating traffic and making traffic lights work better. So much out there to explore, really. Sixth, EV charging. The idea here is to find ways to support local EV car owners with chargers. And so, yeah, that's one. That also prompted a lot of discussion. Seventh is key corridors, streets that have the greatest level of importance in terms of traffic, access to business, etc. you guys have recognized this last summer, I think, was it, you were doing all the work on Center Street, which has really led to a real improved sort of urban realm in Center Street. So what other sort of primary corridors in town, what's next in terms of what you're going to update, upgrade? And then finally, parking in places like the town center, parking in places like the commercial district on Route 3. A lot could be done to improve your current zoning code and what it does for parking. For example, if I'm recalling, it's been a while since I looked at your zoning code, but I think there wasn't any provisions that I remember for shared parking or things like that. Or shared parking is great. You'll get one parking facility for two developments instead of two and two, and maybe one curb cut instead of two curb cuts. So there's a lot you can do to sort of rationalize future development and cut down on the amount of asphalt, the amount of curb cuts, and the amount of parking lots. And the other thing with shared parking is if you have two types of developments that are operating at different times of day, then you can cut down on the number of spaces. If you have a church and then you have an office, churches on Sundays, offices on weekends, stuff like that. So that was kind of a lot, but that was really the heart of our goals, your goals that are in the master plan, and they came out of a lot of sort of serious iterative discussions. And to me, now you have the plan, and I think a great question is where to go next, and I'd be curious to hear what you guys are thinking in terms of that, or any other questions that you have.
Great, excellent. One thing that did stick out to me in the plan was the land use and how land use has changed over the last 20 years in Pembroke. I think we've done a really good job of putting aside open space, but that was at the expense of, residential, which increased a little bit, and then business use, which decreased actually.
You're right. Yeah.
So we do have some opportunities there, and I think since we have done such a good job of expanding that open space over the last 20 years, that could be the key to some of that tourism piece. We've got a lot of trails that could be connected with each other, put together, and we've got terrific open space, so there's opportunity there for us to attract people. And then the other thing that stood out was the declining amount of land available for future residential development.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty small, so that tells us is we're pretty much close to build out. And how do we leverage that land left to get the maximum potential out of it? And with the housing issues that we're faced with, we may have to take a look at some other zoning changes to make that happen. And then the idea of, mixed use, which we've gone back and forth with. We had mixed use in the Center Protection District. It attracted a lot of residential with very small amount of commercial in it.
Yeah.
So we decided to do either residential or commercial there. I think we need to revisit that. There's some potential and future potential in the center of town. We have a new public safety building that's going to be opening hopefully in the next 2 years, which means that the existing fire station will be vacant. And there's a whole corner there that's got a lot of potential for development in the downtown area that we should really take a look at, how we're zoning that center protection district. So all those things kind of jumped out. Anybody else have any comments or observations?
No, I think it was well laid out, and I know we started a subcommittee within the planning board working on some of the action items, and, we want to get started on it and move forward on, what has been brought to us and all the hard work.
Yeah, we've taken a couple of issues that we think we can do relatively quickly out of the gate.
Oh, great. That's fantastic.
I've been in touch with OCPC about updating our,
Housing production.
our production plan, a couple other things, trying to work with them for grants and things that were all in the action items. So we've started working on all of that.
Oh, that's great. If you guys are ever interested in speaking with some folks from Westboro, I brought it up a lot with the collaboration committee, but we prepared their master plan, and then we worked with them pretty closely on the implementation strategy. And they're sort of very methodically going through and sort of implementing a lot of their actions, which the plan was completed, I think, 3 years ago. And we've helped them on some of the actions. But they're being super methodical and making sure, just using it as a roadmap, you know.
The plan as a roadmap.
So the master
Using
plan.
the master plan as a roadmap.
Yeah, as a sort of guide.
Have they adapted it in that process as well?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But basically, they'll take ideas from it, and the ideas turn into a whole plan. Like, for example, we say, write a housing production plan, and that becomes a whole process in and
Yeah.
of itself.
Yeah.
So you might discover new things through that process that weren't discovered in the
Yeah.
master plan.
Gotcha.
So I think really opening up any of these actions is just taking a deeper look, which is definitely going to lead to new thinking whenever
Yeah.
you get around to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As the chair of the committee, I just want to tell you all that I made it clear when we were doing the plan that this is going to be a working document. And the other aspect of that is this is an outline and a kind of like a wish list and a look forward with the data set. As an engineer, I'm going to say that now the creative part comes in. And we, as the people who are the leaders of the town, need to work on our creative aspects to make things happen. And so, I mean, I would really like to see all of the boards get together and meet a few times to sit down and talk about communication between the boards, interaction, planning, permitting, the whole 9 yards, so that we can refresh everything in the town with a look
Well,
forward.
one of the challenges you have with an implementation plan is getting the champions to champion.
Yeah,
So, I know that, we're kind of chomping at the bit to implement what's assigned to the planning board, but we have to get the other, entities in town to get as excited about it as us. So
Yeah.
that takes some time and it takes some persuasion and influence, but,
Yep.
I think we're on our way with a finished plan and, the amount of time we've given to actually getting people to look at it and participate in it, I think is very important in getting people to kind of pick up on it. And with the, the current things that are going on with the community center building, the residential development in the center, and the new public safety building, I think we've got a lot of great things to talk about, and they're all part of this plan.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Sure.
Anything else? Sure. Come on up to the podium and
Tell us who you are.
and why you're here?
Steve Ciciotti, Select Board, also on the Master Plan Committee, obviously Tracy's here, Jim Ang, large part of Master Plan Committee as well as here. Thank you, Luke. VHB was awesome. I just had a couple questions. There was a number of items that towards the tail end, we weren't able to make it into the plan with the expectation that the town will put those in. Has VHB sent or plan on sending like a .doc or docx version of the master plan so we can edit it on our own to implement those final items?
I think I was sort of waiting on guidance from the town on that, or, from somebody.
Okay, all right, just
I'll check back in on it, but, yeah, if that's what the town, if that's the direction you guys want to go in, absolutely.
okay. Yeah, because I know there was some outstanding items, so, on our end and whatnot, that it sounded like we need to do on our own. So there's that. The other question I have is the version that you have, that you consider final, is that the February version, or is there a later version of that? I understand there was probably some tightening up the bolts, my understanding, talking with the town manager about, that had to be finished up on.
I think it's been a few months, but I think that we had a sort of long list of ideas from the committee, and our budget was at its very dying days.
Apart
So
from those.
What we did was,
Yeah.
the town manager said, identify those that are absolutely mission critical. That, in other words, what were the errors and omissions? If there's a comment like, hey, you messed this part up, you're talking about the wrong part or something like that, we made sure to address all of those. But then there was the remainder of the comments, which were sort of additional new ideas. And because of the nature, the guidance we were given was, okay, pens down. So I think there's still a list of which month the version was. I can't recall exactly.
Okay.
But there is a list that we can send back to you guys and say, look, by the way, these are the bullets that never made it into the plan for the record.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was referring to in that second point. There's the errors and omissions, if you were aware that if those were implemented in the plan that we have
Yes,
in front of us, those are taken care of. Okay.
Those are taken care of.
Those are really my only two main questions about our ability to edit the document, the format that we'll receive that in, and if the errors and omissions were completed. So that's all I have.
I think we also understand that, master plan is going to be more directional and not as prescriptive as we're supposed to be. So I think we've got enough with this master plan to have a good, directional document to help us go in the right direction on any kind of prescriptive stuff we want to do going forward. It's really our job to kind of find the things that we want to take that fall into all of these chapters and move along with. And I think that's the way the implementation will happen. We'll have to find the things that are in the right priorities and make sure we start taking them on.
Okay. Yes, so would you then, does the planning board consider the master plan that they've seen so far as it is final, it's done, or these
Well,
remaining open items, are we going to be
if-
able to add them?
If you feel, and maybe you and Stefan can talk, since you were both on the master plan
Yeah, we can
committee,
talk.
go through those things and we can get them in there. But I'm willing to accept a motion tonight to accept the master plan as presented to us with any edits that you want to make going forward.
And I know talking to like the seeds committee and things, like they need a final version. Like we can't keep it open or we can't qualify for things. So we need to close it. Like we can make, add-ons, notes, like like whatever it is, like those action items, or letting the boards that those new items that you wanted to add, I think, let them know about those thoughts. They might not have to be in this document at the very moment, but so we can have a final version posted on our website, so we can use that towards moving forward on the items, because leaving it open is stopping that.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
And thanks to the committee also for all the hard work.
I
We
hope Steve
appreciate
gave
all
everybody there.
all the time that you put in. It's a lot of time devoted to the project, and it's very much appreciated.
I'd like to make a motion then. Can I make a motion?
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the master plan as presented.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Any opposed? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
I get excited, sorry.
All right, so it is 7:39 PM, and we do have a continuation of the public hearing, continued from June 3rd, 2024, at 7 PM for SP 2-24. David Newall, Town Tavern and Treehouse, 244 Matakeesis Street. The applicant proposes to increase on-site parking by adding about 3,091 square feet gravel parking area. The area will be used for stacked parking of customer vehicles. Parking area will be operated by a complimentary valet parking service. Stacked parking will allow for about 33 cars to be parked in stacked configuration. Stacked parking will result in a total of 99 spaces on site. The valet parking will allow for a 43% increase in parking over existing operations. In addition to the gravel parking, the applicant proposes wetland buffer mitigation plantings, a subsurface crushed stone trench, and rain garden for stormwater attenuation and treatment. Current site in the area of work sheet flows untreated and unattenuated south towards Furnace Pond. All right, so this is a continuation of the public hearing. The reason why we continued the public hearing is we had 14 days to issue the conditions, and we would have been on the clock if we closed the public hearing. We had a long discussion at the last meeting. I think we covered everything. So
Can
I
I
will,
make a motion
yes,
to close the public hearing on SP 2-24?
do I have a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So you do have the conditions before you. Did we want to, we have in the past voted the waivers. There are a couple of waivers here. Page 4. Ah, okay. Just read them out loud. So with reference to waivers requested from the planning board rules and regulations governing the issuance of site plan approval, the board grants the following waivers as voted and approved by this board. Section 4.15, Section 5.1, Development Impact Statement. Section 5.2, Site lighting, no additional lighting is proposed. Section 5.6.1, parking areas are to be paved, gravel parking is proposed. So do I have a motion to accept those waivers as part of the conditions? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Now I'll entertain a motion to accept the conditions as presented.
I make a motion to accept the conditions as presented, or the waivers.
Well, all the
whole-
conditions now.
All the conditions and waivers as presented.
Okay, for site plan
S.
SB 2-24. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We'll have to sign them now, and then we're done.
Excellent.
You have the originals here for me, Sue?
Yes.
You can send them around?
Separate folder.
Separate folder.
Yep, it's right on the top.
It was warm in here.
I'll do that for one.
Hate you.
I'm taking credit for your
It's
pain.
you next to me. Is Stefan signing?
Yeah, I abstained, actually.
Because he abstained because he wasn't here last
Yeah.
meeting.
I mean, I don't know.
We just need 4 signatures.
There's one on this one, right? Okay.
Excellent.
It's weird making a motion. It's been 2 years since I made a motion.
All right. So, we have a discussion with Bill Papastratis for 631 Washington Street, 30 Old Washington Street, regarding slight changes from the proposed plans. Come on up. What you
Yeah,
got for
just,
us?
I'd like to ask for a waiver for the stop sign and the stop line in the condo complex. I drove up and down 53, I didn't see any stop signs or stop lines anywhere. There's a subdivision across the street that's fairly new, that has over 20 houses, and there's not even a stop sign or stop stripes there. So I'd just like to ask for a waiver on that.
Okay, any reason why it was on the site plan?
The engineer put it on there, I don't know what the reason was.
I don't know what,
We don't have stop signs anywhere else.
Yeah.
I don't know, was there anything in the traffic study that would have called for it?
There's no traffic study.
there wasn't a
There was in
traffic.
the traffic study.
There's only 9 homes.
Yeah, and they switched to Old Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Derek Twist doesn't have it, he does.
Gotcha.
And then the other thing was the fencing. Fencing is supposed to come down near the entrance, but because of the stone wall and the sign that's there, the only place to push snow at the entrance is next to the stone wall. So we left a spot in between so we could push the snow in there. And that's why we didn't continue the fence, but we did put large boulders and trees along the front there.
Okay, and there was no accommodation for the snow storage on the site plan?
No, not that I saw.
All right, you need it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to start with the stop sign? I'll accept a motion to, and these are minor modifications to an existing site plan. Do we want to take them up as both of them up?
Sure.
As minor modifications to an existing site plan? Jim, you want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we approve 2 minor modifications. One to remove the stop line and stop sign, and the second to not require the fence to go all the way, but to have large rocks instead, I guess.
All right, do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're good to go.
Thank you.
Sure.
You should still tell your residents they should stop before
I
entering
will
the
do
public
that.
way.
Yeah, and I'll send my HVAC guy
Yeah.
over to
Okay.
give this a tune-up.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, next we've got an informal discussion with Ryan Cleves, I think. Is that how I pronounce your name? Acela Construction for a possible addition at North River Church, 334 Old Oak Street. Welcome.
I'm Ryan Cleves with Acela Construction.
Todd Shimshak, Executive Pastor of North River Church.
Mark Dickinson, Building Committee, North of the Church.
Great.
So typically, we'll hire a civil engineer to present to the planning board. With this one, we're kind of just in the throes of actually hiring the civil engineer. But what we're doing is we're working with Axiom Architects, and we're investigating putting an addition on the North River Church at 300 Oak Street. As part of that project, we'll be expanding the building about 30 feet to one side, and it's a 60-foot by 30-foot addition. Everything, will be detailed and submitted to, the planning board as needed.
Okay. Is there any change to the parking or?
At this point, we don't believe there's any changes to parking, but that'll be calculated by the civil engineer.
Okay.
Once he gets engaged.
All right. Any other changes to the site that are noteworthy?
We've got a rendering, if you'd like to look at it.
Sure.
Yes, sure. I can put it here on this. So, this plan here, essentially, this is the existing building here, and we're just putting an addition on this side. As part of that addition, it will extend the covered porch, and then there'll just be some access walkways in the front.
So as part of your civil engineering, you're going to have some stormwater management issues?
Yes, the civil engineer will address all of the stormwater and do all the calculations for stormwater, septic, and parking.
Okay, great. So that'll be part of your formal site plan submission?
That's correct.
Okay. Good. Any other questions from the board?
What's the addition? Nosiness.
The church is, we've been on the property for 20 years now, and we were looking to expand it for an activity center for medium-sized space for groups from 20 to 50, 50 to 100 people. So it's about 1,800 square feet. So we'll use it for our events programming, but then we'd also like to provide it as an outreach to the community when they need large events. We host the Boy Scouts here from Pembroke, and a couple other programs that have used our facilities from time to time. So we figure it would serve well then, rather than the large space that we have that you saw on the plan.
So the question is, would their occupancy increase by this addition in any way, shape, or form for the building itself? In other words, could you have church services at the same time as you're using that, thus increasing your occupation, thus adding a requirement for more parking?
So
I'm asking the question because,
we don't know at this point,
Okay.
for this initial meeting, so we're engaging with a civil engineer and an architecture firm that are going to do those calculations and they'll present that.
Yeah. Well,
Rough
in
assumption.
addition to that size, it's going
Rough
to have
assumption.
stormwater
Yeah.
implications, which this board will be concerned about. Occupancy, building department with certificate of occupancy that you're gonna need to get for the space
Sure.
and the fire department.
To answer your question, we are researching this for sure. When the building was built 20 years ago, it was built with 3 phases in mind, and the parking was specifically designed with those 3 phases in mind. So we believe we have, at this point, we have adequate parking, but we will certainly research that with the engineer.
Great.
Cool. Just normal day-to-day operation, do you usually have extra parking spaces?
All the time.
Yeah.
We have
It sounds like it's going to be a
two full
space that
rows.
won't be used all the time, that the rest of the building will be used, and
Correct,
it'll probably be good.
Off-time programming.
Yeah.
Very little will it be used during our services, but you never know. So,
So it can be shared parking then,
Yes.
different uses.
correct, yes.
Great, thank you. And we look forward to getting your site plan submission.
Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Sure, thanks for coming in.
It's an ambitious plan.
Yeah.
You have to do it. Congratulations.
All right, so we've got our review of routine administrative matters and possible vote to accept the minutes of the recent board meetings.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as presented from Monday, June 3rd, 2024 meeting.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Now, we also had a letter from Weathervane in our packets, and that was to specifically vote to accept the Mylar drawings from Country Club Cluster Housing Development.
Yes, and then I spoke to Tyler today from Proper Designs, and she said we needed to vote on the age-restricted project. They're going to Mackenzie Street.
We did,
We did that in
in the very beginning.
yeah, we did that in November
Okay, I wasn't sure, she said she needed to vote on it.
of '22. Well, that was in the letter that,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that we had done that. It wasn't
We
asking
did
us
that,
to vote
one of the first things we
Yeah,
did.
it was one of the first things
Yeah,
we
well,
did.
she mentioned it today that it needed to be voted on again, but we're good then. Perfect.
Well, we can vote on it. I think we all. Because in the letter, it says, in addition, as you will recall, at its November 14th, 22 meeting, the board voted unanimously to allow Weathervane to follow the zoning bylaw and transfer the affordable age-restricted residential units to another location in the town of Pembroke. We write to notify the board that Weathervane elects to transfer the affordable age-restricted residential units to the Matakeesit Village age-restricted residential project at 7-15 Matakeesit Street, which was approved by the Pembroke Board of Zoning and Building Appeals on February 29th, 2024. Yes, we allowed them to do it already on November 14th, 2022. And now they're telling us where they're moving to. Yeah, so we should be good on that. So on the signing of the Mylar, again, in this letter, there was pointed out the updates to address the condition of the board's approval prior to endorsement, including coordinating with the DPW to incorporate the water distribution system design elements. So there's a couple of things here on that. They all looked fine to me. And we would all need to sign the Mylar, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Dan needs to sign too.
The country
Someone else
club,
needs to sign. There's 5, right?
Yeah.
The quorum is 5 for that one.
did
What's the
they
motion,
already,
that we accept the changes, or
did they already present their wastewater treatment plan for that project? Mm, I didn't get
Yeah.
to see that.
isn't that Board of Health?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're just,
Don't tell me to mind my business creatively.
no, I mean, the DPW did the water stuff, so.
Yeah, and this is the water stuff here.
I just would like to see it, that's all. So I'll look it up myself as a matter of public record.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm curious, that's all.
So do we need to vote on anything?
I'm trying to decide if we need to vote again to sign the plans. So we never signed them before.
No, we signed them.
We
This is the
signed them, it
Mylar.
was just the Mylar.
And this is
We
the
didn't
Mi-
have the Mylar.
And this is the Mylar with the,
With changes.
with the changes that were recommended by Deb Keller and DPW.
So if
I'll
we-
make a motion that we sign the
Wait,
Mylars.
before we do that, don't we need the quorum, like, who was the quorum on this? Don't we need the same quorum to vote on it?
No,
Do we need
because
the same quorum to vote as voted on the,
are we having just the clerk sign it, or is the entire board signing it?
Actually, it only needs to be the secretary that actually signs the document, but officially, that's what we've done before.
Yeah, it was not
Didn't need-
here.
Didn't, yeah, we formed the
Yes,
board.
Scott's not
Yeah.
here.
We have a different secretary, cool.
And he wasn't. No, I think
We're supposed to after the,
I think the quorum.
Who's the clerk now?
I think,
I'm not.
it's Scott Martino. I think the quorum of members who voted the approval should sign the
I
Mylar.
know, I guess.
So why don't we have a motion to that effect?
So I wasn't on that call, so someone else made the motion.
Okay,
okay.
Elise should make.
I'll make a motion to sign the Mylar with the changes as we had directed. So the quorum that accepted the plan as proposed shall sign the Mylar.
Do I have a second?
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
You know what it is, they're incorporating conditions of approval into the plan.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Right.
Which no one else bothers
Right,
doing.
right. This is good.
Yeah, they did the right thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
excellent.
So who's gonna sign?
Well, we'll have Sue tell us who signs based on the approval. I can't remember off the top of my head.
It's on everybody but Jim and Scott.
Okay.
Okay.
So we need Dan.
No, I'm gonna read it.
So we all can sign tonight,
Yeah,
and then just Dan needs to come in to sign.
okay.
All right. That's good. That works.
Do we need to look this over at all, or
Yeah,
Plain Street?
what a mess.
Well, that's the ZBA.
Yeah, it was just more FYI. It was just FYI.
No,
Oh, okay.
that goes before the ZBA. What's the date of that ZBA hearing?
July 29th.
July
July
29th.
29th, okay.
And if you have any comments, you have to send them to me by July 22nd.
Oh, gosh.
Am I not allowed to
The
ask
only
questions?
thing that, when, in going through it, is, in some cases it mentioned the existing building coming down, and in other cases it showed it staying.
There's two buildings. One will come down and the other will stay.
Okay.
That's that.
That answers it?
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I just condensed it because I know the file I sent.
Oh, I read it.
Is that all we have, Sue?
Just the minutes, and then,
Oh,
we
we-
need you all to sign the reorganization.
Ah,
letter.
there we go.
Yep.
And we approved the minutes, so that's good. All right, so we've got the paperwork. So that's it, we'll sign that as well. We don't need a vote or anything on that.
Correct.
So. So we can make a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn?
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're done. Thank you.